This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. My guest today is Bobby Tahir, a highly experienced CTO and technology executive with a track record of building, scaling, and modernizing engineer organizations in high growth and private equity-backed companies. In this conversation, we unpack what really changes for a CTO the moment private equity enters the picture, the shifting expectations, the compressed timelines for value creation, and the strategic mistakes that can quietly derail even strong technical leaders. Bobby shares what PE-backed CTOs often underestimate and what the best ones do differently when the pressure is on. We also dig into how AI is reshaping the CTO role in very real ways. Not the hype, but how it actually changes where a CTO spends their time, which teams feel the impact most, and where productivity gains are truly showing up versus being oversold. And finally, we get into people leadership, specifically the hard realities of leading distributed and outsourced engineering teams across cultures and geographies. Bobby offers a grounded take on what leadership looks like when teams may never share the same room, but standards still can't sleep. If you're a CTO, a technical leader, or anyone navigating scale under pressure, this one is for you. Bobby, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Mateo, thank you. Absolutely. It's great being here and look forward to the chat.
Um, Bobby, how does the role of a CTO change the moment a company becomes PE backed? What pressures or expectations show up immediately that weren't there before?
Yep, great question. It depends a lot on the company and where its kind of position is in its life cycle when it gets acquired by a PE firm. There's a lot of great companies out there that are already doing things really well, then get acquired by a PE firm, just keep doing those things that they're used to. But then there's more lifestyle businesses, maybe, or smaller organizations, or companies that maybe don't know the PE playbook as well. They get acquired, and then they have to change quite a lot. One of the biggest changes that a CTO kind of has to go through is aligning the work output from engineering to the expectations of the business in the right way. And that has to oftentimes be a big point of change because in a lot of businesses, I hate to say it like this, but the technology side is kind of off doing its own thing, sometimes without a strong alignment to the business side. And so PE acquired your company. They're definitely going to want that hyper alignment between engineering, a product, and the company's business objectives. So alignment is crucial. I think the second big change, you look at things like metrics and tracking. Typically, PE firms want a lot more of that than maybe you're used to when you're not as part of PE or VC. And and so being able for a CTO or a chief product officer, being able to establish clear metrics, track them over time, report on them in the right way, gain the right kind of insights from them, and report that up to the board and CEO is a very big deal once you get into PE. So alignment, metrics tracking. The third big one is, as you can imagine, in a lot of businesses, the CTO has a budget, and as long as they're within the budget, they can do a lot and have some flexibility. But what happens when you get acquired into PE is a lot more financial considerations come to play oftentimes. And so if you're a CTO who hasn't been super financially well versed with the finance side, then now all of a sudden you have to adjust yourself and you have to become familiar with the fundamentals of the financial picture of your company and how your work impacts those finances. Whereas before, maybe before PE, that wasn't as big of a thing for you. Well, now as a CTO, you better get familiar with a lot of the basic financial concepts that PE firms care about, like, for example, margin and profitability, EBITDA, CapEx versus OpEx, all of these financial underpinnings. Now, a CTO really, really has to know them. Otherwise, it can't speak to the priorities of the PE firm. I think a fourth thing I would just throw out there is an X factor is that you have a particular kind of culture before you get acquired by PE, and in many cases, the company perhaps is going at a certain speed, and then it gets acquired, and now all of a sudden the speed needs to go up a little bit, and and so the demands of velocity might be higher. Maybe the PE firm and the company want to put more products into the market faster. There's now maybe more pressure on the ELT to deliver more products and services at a faster rate. And so it's not just the CTO, but every leader now all of a sudden has certain targets they have to deliver against. And there's an increased sense of urgency I've noticed that often is accompanying the acquisition from a PE firm. Now, there are some organizations that, by nature, their culture is a highly urgent ones, moving very fast, growing, hand over fist, all that kind of stuff. They don't have to change as much, but I find that like 60 to 70% of the time, the urgency really has to ratchet up to meet the new goals of the PE firm. So.
I love it. Alignment, metrics, tracking metrics, financial constraints and considerations, and then culture and speeding things up. Talking about speeding things up, private equity firms often talk about value creation in 12 to 36 month windows. How does that time horizon reshape technology strategy and decision making?
Yeah, that's a great question. Nobody has really asked that level of question. So nice. You have a lot of insight on this. It's the obvious thing, basically. Like, if you're a CTO or a chief product officer, and you had almost an unlimited time horizon in one way to do things, it was maybe a steadily growing organization, and you kind of had some near-term goals, but everything else it'll get done when it gets done. Now all of a sudden you have time constraints, and they're imposed upon you at some level. They also get asked, hey, can you impose your own time restriction on some of the projects and strategies you're working on? But for sure, those constraints now become a big part of what you have to factor into your technology strategy. So here's one practical example. Um, you're a CTO of a a PE firm, non-PE backed company, and you were doing a massive modernization. Okay, so or a cloud migration or something, and it was like a $10 million project. Okay, now that project may take you like 5 years to do. All of a sudden, you get acquired by PE. Now they're thinking, okay, what's the ROI on this project? Okay. And give us the business case on it because we're going to spend 10 million bucks on it. And they're probably going to come back if it's a fantastic ROI. They're probably going to come back and say, all right, well, maybe you can squeeze this down somehow by cutting scope or making some changes to the approach. Okay, because they're going to want to see the return faster. Okay, and so that's just like one example of what happens when you get into the PE back world is return on investment starts to matter a lot. Your strategy better deliver ROI, and it better do it in a couple of years as opposed to like half a decade maybe that you were thinking before, right? So this has happened to me too. PE guys said, Bobby, I know you're doing this modernization. It has to be done for the customers, but find a way to do this in half the time. And then I'm going back to my lieutenants and I'm thinking that strategy through. And then I've had to do that to others as well. So um, the time constraints really makes you under pressure at some level to deliver value at a faster clip and in a way that's more business aligned. So, for example, okay, maybe I'm doing a Kubernetes migration or something. Okay, cool, let's do that. But like, how's it going to make the metrics move, the business metrics move at the PE level? Is it going to do anything? If not, well, they're going to question that big project quite a bit. So you have to become much better at conveying your business cases, right? You can't just be like Kubernetes for the sake of Kubernetes anymore. So that's a big thing. Impacts the time constraints impact your technology strategy and decision making. It impacts how frequently you deliver value. You can't go dark as much, right? You have to like, show constant value. So it almost makes you a little bit more agile. I love the constraints because it just you're constantly then forced to deliver value, and that's what we want to be doing as technology leaders. I think one last thing on this is that like it makes you think of not just tech strategy as a CTO, you start thinking in terms of business cases, like I was alluding to. So yeah, now I'm still going to do the Kubernetes migration maybe, but like maybe in a shorter time horizon. And then also I'm going to be able to say, you know what, if I do this Kubernetes migration, I'm going to increase uptime for this segment of customers by 20%. Okay. Or I'm going to reduce cloud ops spend in terms of headcount by like four people or something. Okay. It really sharpens the technology leaders like business case kind of uh, development skills, so get ready for that if you're getting acquired by a private equity firm that everything you do over a certain amount of money, like let's call it 50,000 or 100,000 bucks, start building business cases for that, or at least getting used to the concept of building business cases for big projects, because that's a big part of being a CTO and a PE background.
Now, what mistakes do CTOs commonly make when transition into a PE-backed environment, and what do the best ones do differently? Do you see sort of a naiveness in some CTOs when they're transitioning? They think, oh, things will remain more or less the same. What are the type of mistakes that you see?
Yeah, that's another great question. You know, I find that most CTOs are very practical people, and they pretty quickly realize that it's a new ball game and that they need to change. And so they undergo that metamorphosis, if you will. Some CTOs, though, I think will make some mistakes. And the most common one, or the top one or two most common ones, are not realizing that when you get into PE, numbers, whether they're productivity metrics or ROI numbers or financial numbers and things like that, like that plays such a big role. And if you're a guy or if you're a person, man or woman who is used to just talking about the tech and oh my God, LLMs or oh wow, AWS has new chips or something. If you're so deep in the tech and you can't focus on the business side of it, the number side of it, fast enough, and you just reject that whole idea of trying to become a bit more business minded, then it's not going to go well, frankly speaking, for you. So I think that's the biggest, most common mistake is a lot of CTOs just want to stay tech and they don't want to be bothered by the business side. And if you take that approach, it's going to be very difficult. I think the second mistake is the speed factor. You were working maybe going 35 miles an hour for the last like 5 years. Now you got to go 60 miles an hour, and you don't move fast enough to go faster, and that can cause problems. So this idea of thinking you have plenty of time, the truth is, if you get acquired by PE, the clock starts ticking the minute the transaction is complete. Okay, that right away the change starts to happen. And in very, very rare occasions, you get time to change, and maybe you get a year to morph into something. But most of the time, you are expected to change rapidly. And so if you're a CTO and you're just taking your time, that's not also probably not a good thing for you. Um, and I also think sometimes this happens, which is that, if you're coming from a lifestyle business, maybe you have a board of directors, maybe you don't. Maybe you have board meetings, and those board meetings are a mixture of business and fun. But now all of a sudden you got acquired by a PE firm. Now the culture shifts, and some CTOs sometimes don't show up with their A game every time. And so the truth is, once you're acquired by PE, you better bring your best stuff to the board meetings, to all your email communications, to all your C-suite level stuff. You can afford to be relaxed in terms of that in a lifestyle business, but once you get into PE, it does tend to shift a lot. The quality bar tends to go up.
Very, very clear. Thank you, Bobby. Let's shift gears, talk a little bit about AI and the impact of AI on the CTO role. How has AI changed how you personally spend time as a CTO? What are you doing less of, and what suddenly matters a lot more?
Mateo, yeah. So CTOs everywhere obviously have to deal with AI at some level. It's become a key part of everything we're doing as technology leaders. I view AI as more of a lever that you have to, learn how to push and pull in terms of the business value that you're creating or technology value that you're creating. But the problems out there are still the same. You have to build a product that people like. You have to maintain it, you have to scale it. So the problem set is the same. It's just that how you deliver the solution now involves AI in that. So I think what I'm seeing is just CTOs trying to help AI improve productivity of their team, obviously. They're trying to figure out how AI can be used in features to improve the quality of their product. But at the end of the day, still the same mandates that you have. You have to create customer value. You have to go really fast to deliver time to market in a better and better way. And the CTOs, in my view, that are succeeding are still keeping that focus on the business objectives, but trying to figure out how to methodically integrate AI into their practices so that they can go faster, build better products, or have better quality products. The CTOs that aren't doing as well, what they tend to do is focus on AI as like the problem to solve. We're going to solve this problem of AI. Okay, well, if you spend all your time thinking and obsessing about AI, maybe you're not building the right products for the customers, or maybe you're not like creating the right kind of business impact, right? So I see a lot of CTOs getting too wound up around this idea of an AI. My opinion is constantly keep researching AI in your spare time, learn it, bring it in also into your organization in a structured way, measure the productivity improvements. And then when you're using AI in products, like go talk to your customers and figure out, was your AI driven feature really helping the customers? Like, was it a game changer for them? Or could you have built the same thing without AI and it still have the same result? I find a lot of chief product officers, more than CTOs, struggle with like what use case are we going to build with AI, and why is that going to be the thing that customers love us and buy more of our software? So I think it's like trying not to get so wound up around the concept of AI and just still focusing on what the business is trying to accomplish, which is the most important thing.
Um, so there's you were talking about it, right? There's sometimes hype around AI productivity gains, and then there are very real productivity gains and value added for the customer. Um, can you tell us a few examples of where you have seen real measurable impact versus overpromised value?
Yeah, absolutely. So the last couple of years, and I actually wrote a ebook on this called the AI Adoption Handbook for C-suite leaders. And in this handbook, I captured a lot of this. But the obvious spots that I saw, if you just look at the whole enterprise, if you look at enterprise as a whole, customer support, where AI was helping to efficientize that department or function, was, to me, in the last 2 years, the most positively impacted area of almost every business that I've seen. You bring it, these businesses are bringing in AI tools to help their customer support people basically do their jobs 3x and five, sometimes 5x more efficiently and more at scale. That is a no-brainer ever since ChatGPT came out and went crazy at the end of 2023. So customer support's been huge. Where I actually see not as much success in that people promise is you see a lot of businesses, not like CTOs necessarily, but a lot of like CEOs and businesses expecting double and triple the output on engineering. And I look at it I'm not seeing that, you know. I see like on average 20, maybe 30% improvement on productivity. Um, and I think the reason for that is there's many reasons for that. Um, Sometimes maybe the team doesn't know how to use the tools very well, or sometimes there may be that the tools are just not some of the tools until recently just weren't good enough. Now with Claude, I mean, they've really done a great job over there with helping with building great coding tools. They're going to challenge Microsoft Copilot and all that. But the the customer support is at the top, engineering not as strong, and everybody else kind of somewhere in the middle. You see a lot of tools being promised, AI tools from vendors in sales. Sometimes those tools do work for simple things, simple use cases, but a lot of the tool vendors out there, there's a lot of hype. So I always say that during the vendor selection process, you have to make sure that the tool works in your context, in your company, with your people. If they can do a pilot with you, do the pilot, make sure it works for you, and then and only then pay the several $100,000 a year that you're about to pay for it. Um, and then the other thing is, I think AI adoption is just hard for companies just on the face of it. Um, and that's maybe where Exceed and other companies come into play, where a large enterprise with 500 million in revenue and, several thousand people, AI adoption is like when we were earlier in our careers and cloud was becoming a thing, right? Back in 2008, 9, 10, whatever. Um, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of change management problems, people problems, all that. So, but the companies that get AI adoption right across the whole enterprise, I feel like are greatly benefited by AI, and it's in really still pretty specific use cases, but really valuable use cases. Okay, so your whole HR team never has to write another job description ever again. You can just produce it from AI, or all your notes and sales are perfectly captured and organized extremely well, and that really drives much better relationships and conversations with customers and stuff. Like, so you do see amazing benefits from AI, but the company has to know how to do AI adoption right. And it's different in each department. There's no like one size fits all. I've seen things, for example, where like AI adoption in sales was amazing, but the engineers hated it. There's literally companies out there who don't want to bring AI into engineering still. And so they're not going to benefit, but then the sales team loves it and adopts it. So CEOs really have to think hard about their AI adoption strategy And I cover a lot of this in my handbook. I'll share it with you and some of your viewers or something. But um, yeah, it's a mixed bag, and you have to have a good plan for it. And there's pockets of great improvement, and then there's things where it doesn't work as well. Yeah.
We have to name the ebook and put it out there in the description of the podcast. Um, Bobby, which teams under a CTO do you think feel the impact the most right now of AI? Is there a team that is it engineering? Is it data? Is it product? Is it security? I've seen a lot of productivity gains, but I personally seen also what happens with when nobody's paying attention and the type of errors that can be plugging and security vulnerabilities, etc., etc. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I haven't seen AI do all that much in cloud ops or security. Yes, it helps here and there. You got to generate policies and things in security. It's great for that. But solving serious security issues or putting in place like some kind of like se security strategy and stuff, not as much seeing things there. I see a ton of good from AI and quality assurance. Um, AI-based QA tools, using them to automate and orchestrate like regression testing and things like that. Wow, it's amazing for that. Obviously, it's being used in core software engineering a lot. Data science is like mixed. Like some data scientists are really afraid of it. I mean, it's going to take my job. It's going to be taking over data science. I mean, there's no more data science maybe anymore. I can do everything. I can figure it all out, write all my Python scripts, but then there's a lot of data science teams that are making use of the LLMs with traditional data science tooling, and they're doing a fantastic job of producing better output. Like maybe you're a data science team that has to generate reports for the C-suite or something, and LMs factor in a lot to help you on something like that. But I think like data science was already undergoing even before LMs came out. It was going so fast with the changing of the technologies, the evolving of the technologies in data science, that LLMs came in and just like added a whole nother dimension. So data science is a really interesting place. QA, I think 2 years from now, it's going to be all a whole different ball of wax from what it's been for the last 20 years. I think of all the departments under a CTO, I feel like QA is like going to be the most impacted, the fastest and stuff. And you just see companies using AI for QA all over the place. It's crazy. Um, Enterprise IT, unclear, I kind of put that in the same bucket as like security and cloud ops. It's helpful, but I feel like the most helpful spots are core engineering, quality assurance are my top two.
Let's shift gears once again and let's talk about people management and leading distributed and outsourced teams. Um, what's the hardest part of leading outsourced engineering teams across different geographies that most CTOs underestimate?
Oh gosh, I could go on and on about this. I'm trying to keep it simple. I've managed offshore teams for 20 years, and I will tell you what I've learned and what I think great CTOs do. I think number one is not underestimating the cultural differences. I think the cultural differences play a huge role. Um, Eastern Europe has different sensibilities than India and Pakistan. That they have different sensibilities than Latin America. And if you just go in there thinking that like I'm just gonna treat everybody the same as I would in America, it's not gonna work. So I think that's one thing. Cultural differences, stylistic differences. Um, I think another big area CTOs underestimate is not every platform or product is automatically suited to just every offshore team. For example, when I took a product that I was running or managing, I took it from off, it was a mobile product that was being supported in Eastern Europe, and I moved it to Latin America. And the Latin American mobile developers just were really good. And that product like really became much more successful. And I moved a deeply algorithmically focused product from India to Eastern Europe, and the Eastern Europeans crushed it because they're all of them were physics majors, math majors, they're like science guys, people. And so the platform that you have has to be married to the offshore team in like the right way. Can't just like be anything and just throw it out there. I think that's number two. And I think number three, if I had to say it, is like the time zone differences, the overlapping of work hours, making sure that's in place. Because look, the offshore companies and teams will say anything to get the business. Okay, they'll say, we'll work your hours and stuff. But the truth is, a human being is still a human being. So if they're, I don't know, somewhere, in Far East or something, and they're opposite hours to the US East Coast, it's not that easy for them to be as effective. And so you have to think about how much overlap you need. Now, of course, you can pull off many things. It depends on what the business requirements are and all of that. But just you were asking about like what gets underestimated. I think that's a big thing. People, CTOs think they can pull it all off, but it's harder than it looks to keep a team happy and productive working from like midnight to or their midnight to 8 in the morning. That's not that easy. People get burnt out.
How much of this comes from experienced? How much of this comes from intentional learning about cultures, right? And when you understand how your European team is made of and what's the background and how do they feel about certain things, how does your India or Pakistani team feel? How does your Latin American team feel? Is this something you learned through experience, studied both?
Yeah. I mean, you gotta, if you're the CTO, you better be flying to uh, your offshore team's location, hanging out with them, getting to know them. I mean, there's even geographic differences within a country, right? Like Alabama is not the same as New York City, okay? Two completely different regions of the United States. Brazil is a huge country. India is a massive country. There's all these different countries that speak different languages in Eastern Europe and all across Europe. So you have to fly there. You have to hang out with your team. You have to spend time with them. I always say, like, time equals love. You got to show them that you like them, you care about them by spending time with them. If you're just going to stay in the US and remotely manage them without ever them seeing your face, like, that's not going to be good. Maybe if you're the CTO of a massive company, a couple billion in revenue, maybe you can afford to do that. But even those CTOs, I have many mentors that are CTOs of big companies. They're constantly flying around to all their offshore teams and getting to know them. Sometimes it's because there are political upheavals going on in different countries, and you got to worry about that. So you got to show your face and stuff. But it does only happen through going there. And I believe in this, like being in person. You don't have to live there 24/7, but you got to decide your protocol, right? Like for me, maybe sometimes it's every quarter I got to spend a week with my offshore team, you know, and like code with them side by side or work with them side by side. Somebody else may be like once a month, right? But you got to figure out your protocol and you got to be there in person. That's the only way to learn it. Can't learn it from reading books. Can't learn it from just talking to person on Zoom. You got to just like be there.
So cultural differences matter. You have to be there. You have to be there to really understand them. And I like to say when that happens, you are sort of building like a visual and physical contract. When you shake hands, when you see someone eye to eye, and you spend time, even like just going out eating, right? And looking at their
Right.
body language and looking at how what do they talk about, what do they do. I think it
Right.
changes the whole game, right?
Changes everything. Yeah,
Everything,
exactly.
everything. What else? What else makes great leadership for CTOs today when many times half of the teams rarely meet in person, right? You are making the effort, you're a CTO, but maybe, I don't know, there's someone working in Alabama, someone working in New York, someone working in Rio, someone working in, Bucharest,
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah,
How they
it's a
work
good
together.
question. And I think this is also kind of an underrated strategy. I think you are unique in this, Mateo, because you're leading this company, but you're also developing like these personal relationships and stuff with people like me and other CTOs. But I think most of my career, I've been able to develop relationships where I can pick up the phone and talk to the CEO or the GM or the leader of the offshore team. And the top level relationship to me is kind of like critical. It's absolutely critical. If you don't have that connection, if you can't pick up the phone and say, hey, we had a big problem with this release. Can you help us out? We messed up on something. How do we fix it and stuff? And those relationships just they only get built deliberately. You have to both sides have to make an effort. The developers are always going to be great, you know? I mean, you choose a good company or you choose a good partner or whatever, and the developers are always awesome. I've always found like they're just doing their jobs, executing. It's the people who are like at the top who are like sometimes disconnected, they don't know each other, they can't call each other when problems happen. Maybe an invoice didn't get paid quickly, or maybe something didn't get delivered. Both sides might mess up. So you have to have that uh the C-suite connection. You have to have that deeper relationship. And that's what makes everything really work right, because if you did your vetting of each other, then the developers are going to be fine. It's just going to be like, did the managers set things up right? You know? So whenever I've not had a relationship, it's rare, but everything just went south. And then whenever I had a relationship, it was great you know so then I very early in my career started insisting on like we're going to talk a certain amount every single month. Maybe it's just a touch base. How are you doing? What's happening with your business? What's happening with my business? But you got to have that. You have to have that connective tissue you know
Yes, sir. Bobby, any upcoming fun trips planned for 2026 or not yet?
I think I might have a couple of interesting trips. I'm going down to Austin for South by Southwest. That should be pretty fun. Um, that's a great conference. I'm also thinking about a trip to Brazil because I've got a good friend down there who has an offshore team actually. So I'm going to go visit them and see how they're doing. And me and him have been talking about that for a while. How about you? Are you thinking about coming up to the States here soon?
Yeah, I go to the States 3 times per year, at least, at the very least. So I will be doing the East Coast, beginning of May probably. And when I go, it's like a tour, right? I go like
Hmm.
Miami, Charleston, Raleigh, Atlanta, and I keep
Yeah,
going up, New York, Boston, Minneapolis, Chicago. I call it the East Coast, but it's a little bit of East and a little of
Midwest. Yeah,
Midwest, right?
nice,
Maybe some Texas as well, and then on the later part of the year, I will do more like West Coast and then Denver and stuff like that. I love
nice.
it. I love it. I love living. I love. Look, I've been working in outsourcing for the last 17 years of my life now. I love it. I love working for US companies and I love living in Uruguay, but traveling to the US often and working with my US counterparts. It's like I get to experience what it means to work in the US and I still get to be with my family in
That's awesome.
best of work, both worlds.
That's really great. And how's that time zone alignment you were telling me the other day between East Coast and Uruguay?
It's perfect. We're 1 hour ahead in your summer,
Wow. Yeah.
right? So very close. And then we have teams as
Yeah.
well in Peru and Ecuador and Colombia, and those are closer to the West Coast. It works
That's
as you were
beautiful.
saying. You know your business, and it's very much aligned.
That's awesome. And so, is it hard? Just let me ask you this question from one guy, CTO type to another, but like, is it hard managing all of your teams in all the different Latin American countries? Or you must have set up a good culture to do that.
It is, and I think remote brings an extra layer of a challenge. And it's what you said. It's
Yeah.
about finding the opportunities to spend time together, finding opportunities. We have different events during the year, but then we have a 2 day retreat where we fly everyone from South America to Uruguay or Argentina, and we do like a 2 days party, right? And so we
Nice.
we do our best to create situations where we can interact face to face from time to time, because I think that that really creates the culture, right? I mean, you create the culture every day, every single day, right? But those moments that you stay together make a huge difference. So, co-works here and there, bringing everyone together in Argentina, bringing everyone together in Brazil, bringing everyone together in maybe a hub like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, right? Doing that from time to time, it's vital.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's great, Mateo. Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby. Bobby, this has been an amazing conversation. I think we did 3 podcasts in one, right? Because we talked about PE, we talked about AI, and we talked about
Yeah.
outsourcing. And you were great in each of those topics. You clearly know what you talk about. You clearly know your business. And so I appreciate it very much. I feel like I can go back to this episode and create a lot of different content for my network, but also for me. Many things of what you said are stuff that I want to go back, listen again, and it's very, very important for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Mateo. It was great. I loved it.